Hello, everybody. This is Mike from Nymphs, Knots, and Nonsense. And today we're going to be tying the Faded Chironomid, one of my favorite chironomid flies for fishing on still waters and catching big trout. This pattern has minimal amount of supplies. I've got a hook here. This is a Daiichi 1130 in size 14. I've got a 2.4 millimeter, aka a 3/32 bead. I've got silver brassy wire, the silver wire brassy size, and I have two bobbins, one filled with red, the other filled with black, and they're both 70 denier. So my typical small fly setup. So in order to start this, I just take the bead, I pass the pointed end through the hook through the small hole on the bead so that the big side is facing the rest of the fly, and I just pop it into my vise. I start with red thread, get that started. I don't worry about packing anything up against the bead. We'll get there. It'll take us a second. We take some of our brassy wire. Most of the spools that I have one of these spool keepers. Works great to keep it from going kasproing and losing gear everywhere. But I'm just going to cut that off. I'll use this for a bunch of flies. Not a big deal, which is one of the advantages of this fly. It's so easy, so fast to tie. You can crank these things out by the hundreds. And all I'm doing is tying them in, again, positive control, and pulling up just a little bit. Tip it to the side here. I'll pull up and away just a little bit so that as I wrap, it just anchors that wire directly over the top of the hook shank. And I'm going to go down around the bend just a little bit. I'm going to go back, and I'm putting these wraps directly next to each other. So that way that body looks very even. You see that? It looks really even across there. And I'm just going to go, I only have to go up halfway. So I'm going to go up a little bit more than halfway and then put another layer of thread down sort of to the beginning of where the hook starts to bend. And then I'm going to make that layer. I'm putting these all right next to each other. So that way I build up a little bit of taper here using the red. And now I'm just going to take it out to the front and tie it off and cut it off. Maybe. Behave. Got my thread wrapped around the bead. Okay, cool. And you don't have to tie this off or whip finish it or do anything elaborate because we're going to wrap right over the top of it with our black. Okay, and cut that guy out. Take my black thread here, and I'm going to start my black thread. I was tying for 40 years before I found out that starting the thread is not called starting the thread, it's called a jam knot. I had never heard that phrase before in my life. Oh, now I have my black thread. I've got it started. I'm going to just go build up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of that little indent that's in there. And I just wiggle it back and forth. Try to regain my taper there a little bit. Okay, that's cool. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do something. You can't see this really on the video, but the thread here has twists in it, and you can see it because you'll see that thread goes. So it's got fatter areas and narrow areas as it's twisted. So you take your bobbin and spin it this way, and I watch that thread. You'll see the number of twists get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then boing, there are no twists. And you're going to use that to wrap because it makes it flat and not as thick. And you'll see that You can see it just a little bit. If I flip it to the side, and I'll get a needle here. And what you'll see is here's all red. Then this is where my thread is flattened out. But I also leave a little bit of gaps in there when I tie that black thread over the top. That way you've got a little bit of red peeking out. And the black thread is kind of thin, so even if it's black, it still has a little bit of a red tint to it. Okay? And that's what we want, because we're going to put UV resin over the top of this, and that UV resin will bleed through and it'll kind of blend the colors. It's really a cool effect when you see it happen, if you know what to look for. It's not that obvious. Okay, so now all I want to do is come back here, and I'm just going to go down halfway, come back up, go down a third of a way, come back up. Okay, and I just want to put a little bit of a taper in that body, right? You can see that taper that I put in there. Take this, and I'm just going to throw in a half hitch here. Most of the time when I wrap materials, I throw in a half hitch just so that if anything happens, my entire fly just doesn't go kashproing. Technical term, mind you. I take my bobbin cradle, position that over, and I am going to start wrapping. And these guys, you just wrap it like normal rib. Wrap it around, and I am done there. Flip this out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Helicopter the wire off. Be careful not to whack my vise. A little bit harder to do at this angle. There we go. Helicoptered it off. Couple more wraps. You do have to be careful right here next to the bead, not do too many wraps because they'll start to slide. They'll slide off to the left. That's why you just be careful when you build up a taper. I'll throw a half hitch in there. Throw my whip finish. Okay. If I can. Slipped off there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Tension, pull it tight. Bam. Good to hook. Cut off my thread and flip it sideways so you can see what it looks like there. And then this is the UV fluorescing, or the fluorescing UV clear finish. I like this because, again, when it gets hit by sunlight, it starts to glow a little bit, and I think it makes it a little bit more visible to the fish. Also, the bead here is a fluorescent white bead. This one in particular was made by Hairline. And so I will just take this, use that little nozzle on the end to distribute it right. I'm just going to put a layer on there and then pull it more towards the head. Give me a little bit more. Okay, and it's thin, and a little secret is you can spin it and it'll even itself out. So it's just a little bit runny, and when you twist it slowly, it'll even itself out. And now I need my UV torch. Hit it with the UV torch. Slowly spin it. Okay, give a QA test. Doesn't come off on my finger. And I am done. I'll give that to you in the round so you can take a look at it. See it in comparison with the size of my hand. But these are phenomenal little flies. You can crank them out, and they work really, really well, especially now we're starting to get into spring. Spring is chironomid season, and so you have these smaller chironomids that you can actually go out and fish and catch fish on. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, let me know in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video.